All right, welcome inside the WCBL studios for another edition of WCBL Report. I'm Clark Monroe, back from injury, back from the IR, the long-term injured reserve. Not quite, though. As you can see, I'm not actually in the studio. I'm doing this today from my own house, but I'm at the moment at home nursing a knee injury. I don't have to get into the details and gross everybody out, but let's just say I blew out my knee a couple weeks ago. And I'm on the road to recovery. So I'm doing the show from home today. But thanks to everybody who have reached out over the last couple weeks to say some kind words to me or check in on how things are going. Things are going about as good as they can. And I'm back in the saddle, at least via video chat today for the WCBL report. But with that in mind, let's bring in the co host, Joe McFarland, because Joe, it was an awesome weekend, kind of. A lot of great things went on in Okotoks. I won't downplay that, but there was a lot of rain over the last couple of days, a lot of games canceled. So the focus of today's show is going to be just how cool the home run derby and the All-Star game was, and the big announcement that came at the All-Star game about next year. I'm going to tease that for now and save it. For those who are following us on social media or anything, everybody should know at this point what that announcement was. But for our purposes today, Joe, let's keep it a secret and make the big announcement. But let's talk about that home run derby, Joe. Yeah, let's talk about that home run derby, Joe, and that All Star game because you were on the grounds. You did a great job hosting the event for the broadcast. So tell me about the day. Tell me about the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you as well for the kind words. One, two, glad to see you back in the saddle. And that lower body injury sounds like it's getting better and better by the day, which is all that's most important in the grand scheme of things. As far as Saturday, I think the story, like you said, the story of the weekend, besides the play on the field, was what happened to the field more than anything else. And it all started on the Friday. I was actually playing slow pitch in Strathmore the night before and driving home and went through an absolute deluge. Like it was probably 3 inches of rain in about half an hour, and that field was absolutely soaked on Saturday morning. And the crews did a fantastic job just to get it playable more than anything else. That outfield still underneath the scoreboard and a couple of other places. You can tell it was a little splashy during that home run derby. The kids had to wear some galoshes, but what a show the guys put on during that home run derby. I mean, there were multiple guys with double digit home runs in the first round. And in fact, the very last batter was Nash Kroll of the Okotoks Dogs. And he had like three when he took his time out and then went absolutely ballistic and hit eight, I think he did in the last like 35 seconds or so. It was bang, bang, bang. He came in third in the division, which was, much to the chagrin of Okotoks Dogs fans at Siemens Stadium. But how about Matt Rhodes? 22 home runs in 2 rounds, goes up against Ian Heck, throws up. I mean, it was one of those for 3 years now. I've been saying that home run derby has just been phenomenal, whether it be the drama, whether it be some of the storylines. There's Matt Rhodes right now going off on his last one. I mean, there was even having Austin Gurney of the Moose Jaw Miller Express, his dad tossed to him during the game during the home run derby, and there's always been one or two that get to do something cool like that. So I mean, great storylines through and through. And the game itself, a little short, 6 innings, but the East Division come out with the 10-3 win and some great plays. Ethan Menard hits a home run, and guys having fun. I mean, that was the name of it more than anything else. Is putting the best of the best in the spotlight and putting on a show for the fans.
Yeah, and again, second year in a row now that Saskatoon Berries have got the game MVP with Ethan Menard getting the game MVP, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a super cool weekend. It sounded like there was a lot of good fanfare with like over 5,000 people at the game. Was the Derby about that as well in terms of people being there, or did they filter in more for the game?
Filtered in more for the game, but I can tell you the first year they did the home run derby, I remember talking to a few people with the dogs who were like, is this thing actually going to have people here? And the first year, I think there was 2,000 fans in the stands. And each year it's gotten more because people love that. Like you think about Major League Baseball and the derby that they have there. No different with WCBL. I think fans want to see the long ball. And again, we need multiple guys putting up 10 in that first round and the excitement. Like Jack Kaliski thought for a minute that he was going to be allowed in the final because he actually had the second most, but it had to be East versus West in the final, which is why Ian Heck got a chance to go in. But when you put up those kinds of numbers, you're thinking, okay, I got a chance. It was sort of similar to the whole, even having Cal rally with Seattle get into the next round by like what was it, a home run or an inch or something like that. Like there was some high drama during that derby and made it all the much more memorable for the final year in Okotoks.
Justice for Jack Kaliski. Let's start it now. You know who wouldn't have had that issue? Carter Clear out. He would have just won the whole thing in the first round. That's so I don't know, maybe that's some revisionist history going on, but there were some really great photos. Did we run through all the photos, guys? Can we just quickly just run through those photos again? Kelly Lewick, our graphic designer, threw together a couple edits here that are just kind of neat. This is the same play before and after. The umpire calling the guy safe at home here. That's just a cool picture. And then this one here, you got the West dugout on the left. You got the East team on the right. And the one thing that I wanted to just point out was this picture. I don't know what's going on necessarily, but that's Rudy Estrella.
I
He's
can
the manager
explain
of the
this
Swift
one.
Current 57s. Okay, tell me what happened here.
Okay, so pre-game, the players are all introduced and they're all on their respective lines. And a certain coach by the name of Mitch Schmidt of the Okotoks Dogs decides he wants to have a standoff. So it turns out that him and Wyatt McKnight of the Sylvan Lake Gulls took on the vast majority of the East Division. Eventually, Mitch Schmidt gets dragged off, kicking and screaming. He trips and falls. It was full theatrics. Like they were actually on the lines right through Levi Abbott's warm up to start the game. And this is the celebration after because what ended up happening, I think it was Carr actually first started putting equipment on Rudy Estrella. And then it became a bit of a game between the games. So you saw Wyatt McKnight of Sylvan Lake donning an Okotoks Dogs helmet, for example. You saw Mitch Schmidt wearing everybody's equipment. There was a lot of and a lot of like, can you believe this is happening? But of course it did because it was the All Star game.
That's fantastic. And there's Rudy Estrella in the dugout as well. This is the final score of the game, obviously, but there's the East dugout. You see Rudy on the kind of in the middle there, with the backwards hat during the game.
Mhm.
You love to see it. What a character that guy is, and it sounded like just a great day. Now that leads us to next year's great day, Joe. There's going to be another All Star game next year, as you might guess, and it's going to be in a different location for the first time in a while. Can you tell me about what's going to happen for 2026?
I know that there are a lot of WCBL fans in a number of markets who are saying Okotoks gets everything. You see it every time that an announcement is made. And part of it was in the first couple of years, I know the Okotoks Dogs had said, hey, we're just trying to get the league back with its feet under it. The last years were sort of, hey, we put in a bid process, but nobody else put in a bid. So Okotoks said, all right, we'll do it again. This year, there were some bids, and the winning bid happened to be dun 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 the Saskatoon Berries over at. And not only is it going to be the Saskatoon Berries All Star Game, Home Run Derby, the whole nine. Notice that word under All Star. Yes, it is going to be a weekend, Clark. It is going to be July 18th and 19th at the Berry Patch in Saskatoon. Talk to Steve Hildebrand in between the Home Run Derby and the All Star Game when we made the official announcement, and he said he's super excited about the opportunity to showcase the new team, obviously, showcase the field, showcase the community. They've been working with Tourism Saskatoon, Tourism Saskatchewan, and a bunch of others. City Council's behind them 110%, obviously. The other piece to the puzzle, and I think it kind of highlighted it during this weekend, is there needs to be a bit of an off ramp because there were a lot of questions heading into this weekend as the rain started falling. Hey, what happens if it gets rained out? There were teams set to play on Sunday. So, what this does is if schedule it a little bit different. If you have a home run derby on the Saturday and the game on the Sunday, and let's say the forecast looks pretty dicey on the Saturday, you make the whole event on a Sunday or vice versa. So I think it provides a little bit of that off ramping, but also provides you with a full weekend of fun and some travel time too for the players who are all involved.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And but like you said, it's going to be a weekend, and I heard a great interview with Steve Hildebrandt about just kind of their thoughts on what this weekend's going to be for them. And it sounds like it's going to be a whole festival. They're going to get the minor baseball involved, and there's probably going to be a ton of kids running around. Sounds like there might be some extra festivities going on as well.
Mm.
I'm not going to say what that could be, but I'm picturing maybe like a little bit of a concert series of some kind, or maybe some sort of like family fun day where there's a bunch of stuff to go and do or take part in. And the best part about that Saskatoon complex is there's a whole nother baseball field right next to it, which is also very usable. So you can put
Mhm.
stuff on that field for families to do. There's the whole Gordie Howe complex, which is right next door, which is a whole indoor complex. You can do stuff in there. So I'm not. I don't know what the plans are. I haven't been given those plans, but I know. Given Saskatoon's recent track history of things and the way that they want to do things, I'm very excited for that weekend. So it's already looking forward to it for a year from today. So it's going to be a
Mhm.
great time. But Joe, there was actually some games played as well. So let's dive in to the last few days of games. We'll start with Sunday's games. As you mentioned, teams got back into action on Sunday. So we were able to get some games in. Not many, though. There was a bunch of postponements, bunch of rainouts. But Brooks did beat Swift Current 14-8. And Sylvan Lake got a massive 12-0 win over Lethbridge. Moving into Monday, as we move to the next day there, we got the doubleheader. Saskatoon took 2 against Weyburn in Weyburn. There was another doubleheader. Lethbridge took both games against Energy City. And then the 57s got a big 12-6 win over Medicine Hat. A bit of a missed opportunity for Medicine Hat to gain some ground because Moose Jaw also beat Regina that day. So Medicine Hat obviously trying to gain some distance from Regina in the standings, but unable to do so on Monday. And then on Tuesday, last night, obviously, a couple more rainouts. So there's only 2 games. Moose Jaw beat Weyburn 4-1, and then Saskatoon beat Swift Current 11-4. So, Joe, as we move into the standings here, can you just give me a bit of a synopsis as to where we stand, a little diagnosis as where we stand right now? Now that we're, it seems like the season went like 0 to 60 really quick. It felt like we were kind of just like midway. It felt like we were like midway through the season for a few weeks, and now it feels like the season's almost over almost instantly. It seems like teams are getting into that 45-ish game mark now, 40 plus games. So where are we sitting today?
Well, first off, I do want to go circle back to the All-Star game really quickly and say all the flowers in the world to the Okotoks Dogs as well. I did say, that the league is some of the teams are like, oh, Okotoks gets everything. You know what? They set the bar extremely high for this All-Star game over the last 4 years because it became kind of a well-oiled machine. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they had to get done as far as the logistics and that kind of thing. Putting on the broadcast, doing all the little bits to get the players there, make sure that they've got all the swag as an example. Kudos to Pablo Forno and company in Okotoks for putting it together. I mean, they did a fantastic job again in hosting and making sure that field was ready to go. So again, all the flowers to the Okotoks Dogs on 4 years of fantastic All-Star games. Let's go back to those standings for a second, shall we? And let's take a look at it because it is the Okotoks Dogs at the top of the leaderboard in the West. And one storyline that I was watching last week that I think continues this week is they've got a little bit of breathing room now. There's 3.5 games with about 10, 11, 12 games left in the regular season. It's going to be tough for both Lethbridge and Sylvan Lake to mount a comeback. I mean, it's not impossible. Obviously, a lot of time left in the season, but those matchups that we're going to see later on in the show, they're going to matter a little bit more. So they've got that distance pretty much guaranteed, I'll say, playoffs for all 3 of those teams. And then look at the barn burner setting up in the bottom 4 teams. Just a game and a half separating Fort Mac from Brooks with Energy City in between. You never know what's going to happen there. In the East, different story, but the same in a sense. Saskatoon has had that early lead. They looked beatable in the last week or so. They won 50% of their games on that road trip through Okotoks and Lethbridge. So I mean, that sets it up pretty nicely. And I can tell you, I was at the game on Wednesday between Okotoks and Saskatoon. That was a playoff game. That felt like a playoff game. You could tell both teams cared about that one. They wanted to send a message to each other and to the rest of the league. That'd be a fun chance. I did call Saskatoon and Okotoks in the season preview show. It'd be a fun championship series for sure. You see, like you said, Medicine Hat looking to get a little bit of room between them and Regina. Both Saskatoon and Medicine Hat clinched playoff spots now. Regina's on the cusp now because you look at the bottom of that list and it looks almost insurmountable at this point for Weyburn and Swift Current. Depending on if Moose Jaw has to either have the bottom fall out or Weyburn or Swift Current need to win out from here on out. But some fascinating storylines within the storylines heading into the final week and a half, 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's bring up the power rankings really quick. And there's one thing I wanted to point out. The one big mover this week was the Fort McMurray Giants. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to them because they've been kind of battling in that basement of the West pretty much since day one. But Joe, that's one team that you and I have both talked about almost all season long as a team that's like, man, they're playing some close games, they're playing tight games, a
Mhm.
couple bounces, they could be in fourth place, and now all of a sudden they are in fourth place in the West. Staring down a matchup with Okotoks in the first round of the playoffs. So that's great. It's just something that I thought was a good thing to maybe bring up because it makes us look really smart, Joe. Because we've been saying this for weeks. We've been saying this for weeks that Fort Mac is just a couple of bounces away from a playoff spot, and here they are today sitting in a playoff spot. Obviously, it's very close, and it could change next week's WCBL report recording. But either way, it's a fun little storyline to have a look at. Why don't we dive
Mhm.
into the players, the leaderboards in terms of the stats here, Joe? And I'll let you run with these. Let's start with the hitting stats and now. One thing I've noticed, we don't have as many 400 batting averages anymore. That's
Yeah.
kind of balanced itself out a little bit. It's not insane. But the other thing I noticed is, holy cow, Saskatoon chill. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, they've kind of had their way with some of the teams with their hitters for sure. And obviously, when you look at Ethan Menard in the season he's put together, I've put him on the early watch list for league MVP. He's played in a little bit fewer games than some of the other guys, like a Timo Aracena or a Carter Roth, but he came bat lion, and I think he hit his 10th home run of the season the other night. He has been an absolute gem for them, and he's been hitting in the two hole behind Carter Beck of the Saskatoon Berries. And look at Carter Beck, when you have your top two guys hitting over 368, and in Menard's case 412, it's pretty easy to see why the Saskatoon Berries have been playing so well and have the record that they do. Had a really good chat with Timo Aracena as well during the All-Star game. He was just saying, like, it's been tough. He admits it's been tough being the road team all year, but he's taken a lot of pride in being able to be a bit more of a leader this year, and he wanted to show it on in the score sheet. And you look at that 390 or 389 batting average, he's certainly putting on a show, and he did on Saturday as well.
Yeah, that guy's been a stud all season long, and the Carter Roth has finally given up the lead for the averages at least. So a big kind of change in that regard because he's been at the top of the leaderboard all season long. But it is impressive, like you said, Joe, to just see the Saskatoon. Like, they got five guys hitting 368. You said having your top two guys hitting 368. Yeah, well, they have five guys in their lineup on a nightly basis hitting 368. And there's some other guys too that aren't on this list that are also putting up some really nice numbers as well. So there's a reason they have 37 wins this year so far. Let's have a look at the home run
Mhm.
leaderboard. As you mentioned, Ethan Menard, he's just ripping it up as he continues to just put his dominance on the league. His 11th home run the other night, and a couple more berries on this list as well. But there are some other names that are very impressive on this list as well, Joe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously Ethan Menard again. You just have to be amazed, and I think a lot of even in Okotoks, the fans were taken aback by the moonshot that he hit in that game, and in the driving rain, and he just absolutely demolished the baseball. And so there's a rightful place for him right there. And Wilmer Henriquez, again, he hasn't had as many at bats as some of the other guys on the list, and yet here he is at double digits now. An interesting side note in all this, because over the last few years, the Brooks Bombers have been a team that everybody's like, oh, if they didn't have that short porch at Elks Field, nobody would be at the top of the order. Guess what? Look at that top 10 list. There's no one from the Brooks Bombers there, right? And so it's evened itself out a little bit. You look at Corey Waters and how he's really kind of propelled himself into, okay, I'm not going to platoon anymore. I'm going to just be the starting first baseman, and I'm going to be an all-star and all these other things. It's been an impressive run for Corey Waters, and I got to give a shout out to William Edwards as well. There was a lot of conversation, and I'm one of them heading into the season going, okay, that two-headed monster of Austin Gurney and Nate Mensick is gone because Mensick has graduated. Who's going to take over the reins? Well, William Edwards has done that in spades for the Moose Jaw Miller Express. So a few names, and I'll give a shout out to Carter Clarehout because him and I had a great conversation as well on Saturday as well. And
We have
it's
to give
our
a
customary
yeah.
daily, weekly mention of Carter Clarehout.
There we go. Shout out to Carter. Let's have a look at the pitchers now, Joe, because there are some really impressive things going on around the league and some new faces too on this list. I noticed as we go into check out those Fort Mac Giants creeping in there.
I was just about to say, want to know a reason why the Fort McMurray Giants are in a bit of a roll as of late? Well, all you need to do is look at their pitching staff. And prior to the season, you had a great chat with their head coach, and he said, "Listen, like we need to play the game the right way. We need to play catch, and if we can get that going." We can beat, and now they're starting to do that, especially the pitching staff. You start to dial yourself in a little bit, and guys like KJ Jones, Luke Glenn, and Liam Taft are going to lead the way. I was chatting with their catcher, who happens to be from Calgary, actually. Nick Sauve, chatted with him after the All-Star game. He was an All-Star for the Fort McMurray Giants. He said it's a lot easier to catch for a team when you're able to put a signal down and they're going to hit the spot every time. And they've been doing that in spades. I got to give a shout out as well to Levi Abbott, because my goodness gracious, he had another incredible performance coming out of that All-Star game. He pitched 1 inning. He started the game for the West and then goes out against, I think it was Sylvan Lake on Sunday, and throws a complete game, 7 inning. I think it was like a 2-hitter with 10 Ks. Like, just absolute pure dominance. And I said it last week, and the watch has to be on now. He has to be close to that Triple Crown race as far as wins, earned run average, and strikeouts. He's at or near the top in all 3 categories. So Levi Abbott, the hometown kid, doing himself wonders in helping the Lethbridge Bulls get themselves into a spot where they're very much in contention for home field advantage heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, really exciting stuff. Great pitchers in this league. And, one guy I just wanted to point out too, we don't have a graphic for it or anything, but I just wanted to shout out Weston Walls, because we talked about him several weeks ago now. He was the starting pitcher for one of our WCBL Game of the Weeks that happened every Thursday night. And his numbers this year, in terms of, every single category across the board, nothing, nothing eye popping necessarily. But then you look at his strikeouts, Joe, and this guy's a six
Yeah.
foot five monster on the mound, right? Like he's a massive kid. He's got 74 strikeouts. Next closest is Levi Abbott at 59. So he
Mhm.
is quick math here, 15 strikeouts more than anybody else. But you look at the rest of his numbers. 6.33 ERA. So nothing really pops out. But then you see his strikeouts, and you're like, oh man, no wonder they keep giving it to this guy, because he shoves. He's a stud. He just hasn't. Some things haven't gone his way this year. That's baseball. That's how it works. Um, anyways, we can move on now here a little bit to the player of the week. And Joe, you have a fun one, so I'm going to let you run with this one for player of the week this week.
I think there could almost be co-players of weeks with you, because you look at the schedule makers. First off, there have been a lot of rainouts. I haven't been able to sit down and actually tabulate the math yet, but I'd be willing to bet that there have been more rainouts and reschedulings this season than the last 3 seasons combined. So once I'm going to do this math for next week and bring you the numbers there, Clark. But they deserve an honorable mention for sure, because they've been working every night. It feels like they're having to try to shove another doubleheader into the schedule. We'll get into it this week because there's a few of them, as they try to get the last few games, especially when you look at Sylvan Lake and some of the playoff races and some of the implications. Those games are going to be important, right? So shout out to them. But more importantly, especially as the rain has fallen, and no, it was put on full display during the All-Star game. How about the grounds crews for each of the teams that have been involved in games over the last couple of weeks, especially?
Yeah!
There's been a lot of rain that has fallen over the last little while, and they've been able to use the squeegees and get everything all set up so that games can be played within 24 hours or so of some pretty major rain. So a tip of the cap, shall we, to all of the grounds crews and everybody working behind the scenes to get those games going.
Yeah, fantastic job, everybody there. And the Pile of Bones Brewing players, or play of the week, I should say. We have two. We had to go with two. One, I'm going to dub the 1A winner. The second one we'll get into is the 1B winner. But this first one is pretty special. You don't see it very often in this league, I don't think. And it's Kenyon Sanders of the Energy City Cactus Rats. Check this one out.
From Blanchard. Hit well. And what a catch in center field. Put a star on that one.
Put a star on that one, indeed. Kenyon Sanders robbing a home run. Now, I say this because you see it in the major leagues here and there. You see it in the minor leagues. but that's because usually those fences are padded and you can kind of climb them a little bit, so it's a little bit easier. Most fences in our league are not good to jump
Not
onto.
as comfy.
I'll just say that. Yeah, not as comfy. So for Kenyon Sanders to not only jump up without touching the wall, but reach up over that wall in Lethbridge, which is a tall one, that was a great play. So shout out to Kenyon Sanders of the Energy City Cactus Rats. And we have another special honorable mention, let's say. It's that 1B winner. Wilmer Henriquez of the 57s made a really special play over at third base the other day.
Line shot. Enriquez makes the catch and doubles him up. A line drive into the mid of Wilmer Enriquez. He makes the catch and touches the bag before Carter Beck is able to get back.
Line drive down the line, line drive, diving play to make the catch, diving play to tag the guy out at third base for a double play. So a huge shout out to Wilmer Henriquez there. Great play there. Now, Joe, last week the MLB draft took place. Some very exciting stuff around there. I know you talked about it a little bit last week, but there's been some updates in the last few days with some players who are signed that weren't drafted. So can you tell me about those guys?
Absolutely. And we'll start with a pretty big name. And there are some question marks heading out of his final appearance with the Sylvan Lake Gulls with Ty Boudreau, because they made a big point of saying this is going to be the final game for Ty Boudreau as a Sylvan Lake Gull. And everybody's going, well, where's he going? And we kind of thought maybe he might get drafted. He didn't. But right afterwards, Bob Elliott at Canadian Baseball Network said, hey, keep your eye on the New York Yankees. And I had been hearing some rumblings about this since spring, that the Yankees had been sniffing around Tyler Boudreau for quite a while, since his days at Midland Community College. And he was at Texas Tech. He'd been, I can't remember where exactly he was expecting to go for this fall. Well, he's not going anymore because has officially signed as an undrafted free agent with the New York Yankees. So congratulations to Ty Boudreau. The other big name, he's more of a listed player. I don't know if he actually got into any games this season with the Okotoks, but Max Poirier has been a highly touted prospect in the Okotoks Dogs Academy program, and had been playing with the junior national team as an example, was committed to Florida, I believe. He has also signed an undrafted free agent deal with the Kansas City Royals. So congratulations to Poirier. And speaking of that draft there, Clark, just a trio of updates and some dollar figures for you, because you're starting to see actually today, Tyrell Chadwick, a former Okotoks Dog, he has signed a $125,000 deal after being drafted by the Colorado Rockies earlier a week and a half ago now, I guess it was. Tim Piazentine has also signed a Dogs product. He's signed with the Toronto Blue Jays. He's their 5th round pick. His dollar figure, $747,500. I don't know how you come up with these dollar figures sometimes. And the last one, another former Dog in Ty Doucette. He was a 10th round pick of the Cincinnati Reds. He has signed on for $157,000 plus. So congratulations to those three. Congratulations to Ty Boudreau and Max Poirier as well, as they begin their pro baseball journeys.
Awesome news. So there is, I'm going to say, a metric ton of baseball coming up over the next week or so, especially because there's been a ton of rainouts and there's got to be a ton of rescheduled games. So why don't we have a look now at the upcoming schedule for the week, because there's a lot going on. And some of these graphics might need updating given the fact that there's been so many rainouts and reschedules. So we'll start with tonight. We got the Okotoks Dogs in Sylvan Lake for a huge Western Division game. Could be a West final preview. Could be. So that's a big one between the Dogs and the Gulls. Regina's in Lethbridge tonight. They play there again tomorrow. So keep an eye on that one. That's a big game. Weyburn's going to be in Swift Current to take on the 57s. Medicine Hat is in Moose Jaw to take on the Miller Express. And Fort Mac is in Brooks. That's a massive game. That's a doubleheader. Those are two massive games in terms of the playoff picture in the West. So keep an eye on those two games tonight. That's going to be ones to watch tonight. I think those are, if I had to pick, those are the games of the night. So keep an eye on those ones. Let's look at Thursday's games. Again, this is all scheduled due to schedule changes and everything. So keep an eye on these. They might change over the next few days. Swift Current's going to be in Saskatoon to take on the Berries. Fort Mac and Brooks again. So again, this is a massive series going on in Brooks this week. Medicine Hat remains in Moose Jaw to play the Miller Express. Regina remains in Lethbridge to take on the Bulls. And Sylvan Lake and Energy City have a doubleheader at Gulls Field tomorrow. And then on Friday, another big game, is a big day as well. Lots of doubleheader. Again, there could be more, so keep an eye on that stuff. Sylvan Lake and Energy City play again. The Regina Red Sox take a double header in Medicine Hat. Moose Jaw is going to be in Weyburn to take on the Beavers. Brooks is taking on the Okotoks Dogs. Saskatoon is going to take on Swift Current, and then Fort Mac taking on the Lethbridge Bulls. And one big thing about this week, Joe, and the rest of the season really going forward, is there's a couple of really great league initiatives going on that are above and beyond the games themselves. And let's start with the Food Bank Initiative. As you can see here, there's going to be food bank drives at each of these home games, as you can see on the left there. A couple of them have already happened, but this weekend, Sylvan Lake is doing theirs. Energy City is doing one coming up. I'm not sure where that's going to be for Energy City, but keep an eye on that one. Fort Mac has one coming up, and Moose Jaw on August 1st. Saskatoon August 2nd, Regina August 4th. So some pretty great stuff. If you're in those areas and you're going to those games, please make sure to bring some stuff for the food bank. Access Storage and Sentinel Storage, obviously partnering up that one, or for that one, I should say. And on top of that, there's also a used equipment drive going on across the league at these games. So again, this week there's several actually. Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Okotoks on the 25th, Sylvan Lake on the 27th, Brooks on the 29th, Fort Mac on the 30th, and then Energy City on the 4th. So any extra old equipment that you have at the house could be for any sport by the sounds of it. You got something, bring it down. Even looks like they even got shoes on there. So if you have anything extra that you can donate, bring it down to the park and help out the cause there. BrokerLink Insurance bringing you the used equipment drive across the league. So shout out to everybody doing those things. Those are always great causes, Joe. What do you have your eyes on this week going into the weekend?
You kind of hinted at it. That drive for the final playoff spot in the West is going to be a doozy. And for the Fort McMurray Giants in particular, they kind of have their fate in their hands, because not only do they visit Brooks for a handful, but I think the very last weekend of the season, they go up against Energy City. And I think the game plan is, or the hope, the dream, I saw Pat Cassidy on the concourse at Siemens Stadium during the All-Star game, and he's kind of hoping, as long as Mother Nature gives him some agreement and he gets all permit stuff done, that final weekend can be a home weekend against the Fort McMurray Giants. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. But I think that's going to be the big storyline going forward. Is now you're starting to see the you got 10 days left, so there's playoff placements that need to be made. There's also some spots that are up for grabs as far as home field advantage is concerned. You think about, especially if it stays the way it does, Sylvan Lake and Lethbridge, they want home field advantage for sure, because they've been so tightly matched up. Same thing goes for Regina and Medicine Hat, because that looks like that's going to be the East 2 versus 3. Both teams want that home field advantage in a bad way. And I've seen both Med Hat and Regina making some roster additions in the late half of the season here. So they're clearly gearing up, because they know once they get through that meat grinder of round one, they're going to have an even tougher challenge. It's suspecting that both Okotoks in the West and Saskatoon in the East emerge after their respective first round series. So some great baseball. So hopefully Mother Nature agrees with us, and some really big moments expected to happen over the next couple of weeks here in the WCBL.
Absolutely. It's going to be fantastic. And as we mentioned, I think a week or two ago, Joe, the schedule is getting to a point where the interdivisional games are almost done. It's almost all divisional matchups going forward here. So every game is a little bit more important as we get down to the stretch. Appreciate you joining me today, Joe. Awesome updates from the All-Star game and everything going on around the league this week. Appreciate you guys in the back, Bryce and Jordan, and whoever else is helping us out back there today. Kelly for all the graphics, and everybody over at IKS Media. Shout out to you guys. And Joe, I'll say it on your behalf, but appreciate everybody tuning in today. And we'll see you again next week right here on the WCBL Report.
That'll do it. Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, I'd say that'll do it. Yeah, I'd say that would do it.